Hello everyone, I'm LaceTV, and on behalf of Method and Wowhead, this time I'm running down our pick of 10 things we didn't like about Battle for Azeroth. As covered in our last video, Battle for Azeroth wasn't all doom and gloom, and certainly had its redeeming qualities, but there are some aspects we really hope don't return in Shadowlands. So let's get into it. This may not come as a surprise to anyone, but island expeditions were definitely one of the worst parts of this whole expansion. Boring, easily repeatable content that feels like a chore is simply not fun. Sure, it drops some cool looking transmog and mounts, but aside from that, there are no redeeming qualities about island expeditions. Well, except for the fact that they are easy enough to farm. Now, having to farm easy repeatable content hundreds and sometimes thousands of time isn't a fun way to power up your character, and we're happy that we won't have to set out on another island expedition in Shadowlands, because let's be honest guys, they left us all a little seasick. So we get what Blizzard was going for with the wolf runs, but even with the heroic wolf runs that were introduced later on in the game, it never felt like wolf runs found their place. For most players, it felt like something you would do once to get loot, then by the next time it was up, well, the gear was kinda obsolete. The turn-ins gave free AP, and the zone control was an interesting idea which gave access to some fun mounts. And, well, that's about it guys. I mean, it was never something people look forward to. It was too large to run with a group of friends like Mythic Plus, and too easy compared to raids. It felt like wolf runs had nothing new to contribute with. While the rotating element was a fun idea, it did give advantages of heroic level loot for one faction and not the other one, especially early on during a raid launch when heroic loot was vital. All in all, we don't think anyone will miss wolf runs when they rotate out for good. A system designed to give unique ways to empower your character, the Azerite system fell far short of replacing Legion's tier sets and legendaries. It's often frustrating when a certain Azerite effect made lower item level gear better, or in some cases unusable if it didn't have a certain effect. I mean, it never feels good to have a piece of mythic loot drop that's worse than heroic or in some cases normal. However, it did give us interesting playstyles like Glimmer of Light for paladins, but when half of the Azerite pieces that drop don't have the trait, it makes the initial push of gearing your character all the more frustrating. With the launch of Shadowlands, we look forward to leaving Azerite as a thing of the past, and of course Titan Residuum as well. Let's be honest guys, it's no secret that the dungeons this expansion have felt lackluster. With the exception of Freehold, they are linear with very little option for players to navigate the dungeons freely. Rogue Shroud became almost required to not overcap on trash percentage, and the infested and beguiling affects that we are sure were designed to be fun just became frustrating and made classes without stuns or other means of playing around them next to useless. We hope Blizzard learn from the mistakes and give players more choices in the upcoming dungeons in Shadowlands, and we also hope they'll introduce some cool seasonal affixes like Reaping or Awakened. We know it's a staple of the genre, you want something, you best work for it, and that's fine to an extent, but Battle for Azeroth took this to a whole new level with AP and Essence grinds. It seems Blizzard did pick up on this towards the end with Coalescing Visions and the cape upgrades having a cap, because you could only do so much. But that doesn't cover the endless monotonous grind of AP and Essences, especially if you're getting them on multiple characters. Now, one of the big problems with the Essences were how different classes and specs had unequal grinds. Some just needed to farm reputation, others were time gated, where they had to run a dungeon 4 weeks in a row to get the rank, and some could simply get it in a day if they really grinded. This seemingly never-ending time vacuum of AP is by far one of the worst parts of this expansion. Powering up your character is fun, but the grind was one step too far, even for Method. The players at Method love alts, whether it's getting them raid ready or just experiencing a new class. Playing something different gives you a fresh perspective on the game and keep things fun. But to play some of your alts, you have to do the awful grind again and again. Sure, artifact knowledge lessens the sting of getting AP, and Blizzard also gave us alt lovers a small glimpse of light early in the expansion without us not having to grind Champions of Azeroth reputation to unlock Heart of Azeroth upgrades. But that seems where it ended, especially with essences, and now with corruption, it's a mountain of work to get your alts ready. And let's be honest guys, it's not a fun experience. You're not doing heroic or spamming Mythic Plus with your friends. Nope, you're grinding all content gated behind weeks of monotonous dailies that offer no meaningful rewards. Personally, I would be logging into the game a lot more if I had alts to play, rather than grind on. The story of Battle for Azeroth has been, well, odd. We went from fighting an artificial old god in Uldir, then we went on to defending or attacking the Zalor, and ultimately chasing away Jaina who was already leaving. Next we have the Crucible of Storms that finally hinted at our final tier. Eternal Palace foretold N'Zoth's coming, but we are already halfway through an expansion. Why were we fighting Jaina 2 tiers before one of the original old gods? Why did we spend an entire expansion healing Azeroth's wounds for the giant sword to still be there? What the hell happened to Samdi, who was such a key player in the early expansion? Where was Jaina when we fought N'Zoth? She can show off for Ashara, but not for an old god? It feels like they followed the Game of Thrones template of rushing the end. N'Zoth could have definitely used more build up, and it felt like we had a few filler tiers. An expansion should never feel like that. Each raid should have a purpose and meaning, and drive us towards the final boss. A lot of development was put into Sylvanas, just for her to Team Rocket blast herself into the Alpha of Shadowlands, and leave Blizzard clamoring for a final boss. It just felt like we were building up to fight Sylvanas in one way or another, just to have our expectations subverted and an old god thrown at us with a rushed story. As much as we like some elements like Jaina reuniting with her brother or everything to do with Samdi, as a whole, Battle for Azeroth just didn't hit the mark in terms of story. Where do we start with corruption? What was meant to destroy the RNG, corruption actually joined the dark side and actually turned out to be significantly more impactful than Titan Forging. Pressing buttons to do more damage is fun. Having a piece of your gear randomly do 30% of your damage isn't as fun. Empowering our abilities, letting us play around these effects, that would be fun. Min-maxing your cooldowns to get the extra 30% and rewarding skill is definitely fun. It doesn't feel good having somebody do 25% more damage than you because they got tier 3 corruption braces from a world quest. The fact we can't work for best in slot corruption or downgrade from a tier 3 to tier 2 and from 2 to 1 just adds more to the frustration. Being able to essentially buy DPS and HPS with corruption on BOEs is terrible for the game. Impactful gear should be earned, not bought. Similar to Bantic, it's not a terrible idea in principle, but they should not have such a huge impact and certainly not more than the player they are equipped to. But don't just take our words for it, look at Sylvanas' reaction when she got a corrupted helm. No game is without bugs, but Battle for Azeroth was something else. We still encounter bugs every day that has been around since launch, and at launch the game was nearly unplayable. A rushed expansion and it definitely showed. I mean, we would much rather have waited for a finished or even a more finished product. Whether it's falling through the map, being permanently stuck in combat, or just bugged world quests. The bugs have made Battle for Azeroth really unfun to play, and we hope that Shadowlands has a bit more of the old school Blizzard polish. This list wouldn't be complete without, well, you guessed it, RNG. From corruption to Sockets and Bantic to Titan Forging, and the never-ending source of frustration that is personal loot, Battle for Azeroth really seemed to lean into RNG, and that's just not a fun player experience. Some RNG is fine, don't get me wrong, but never being able to get full best in slot gear because of random sockets, Warforged, Titan Forged, and now corruption effects feels bad. Nobody feels good about spending sometimes weeks progressing a mythic boss just for someone else to get better loot than yours from a raid finder, or even worse, a world quest. Jeet from Mapted, you know, the guy with delicious voice and a lot of silver in his mental piece, he actually went into patch 8.3 with 3 holy paladins because of how prevalent RNG was. The 3 characters that were almost exactly the same in terms of gear went into Mythic Week with vastly different power levels, not from any time or effort, but simply from RNG. While that's an extreme example, it shows the problem. A significant portion of your character's power level is simply up to chance. And let's be honest, that's not fun. Even if you're lucky, you don't feel like you earned it. And what's an MMORPG without earning your rewards? Anyways, that's our list, guys. If there is anything you disagree with or think we missed something, let us know in the comments below. Just keep in mind that not everything is doom and gloom, so check out our top 10 favorite things in Battle for Azeroth. I'm LazyTV, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, consider giving it a like, and I will see you next time.